I want to see my tax dollars going to really teach reading, writing, and arithmetic. We have fallen to 40th among the industrialized nations from when the Department of Education was open, when we were, in the top 5 or 10. We're now 40th. That's ridiculous. I want my tax money going to make these kids, competent to be able to have full and productive lives by having the basics of reading, writing, and arithmetic.
How does your president, he's trying to cut trillions, if not billions, out of the budget, including he would prefer to shut down the Department of Education.
He's trying to transfer it to the state level. He's trying to transfer it so that the people at the state level have more control over what's taught in their schools, all the way down to the local level.
And when Jim Crow laws came along, everybody said, oh, it's just harmless. And it was really meant to keep discrimination going.
But A, we've grown past that. B, you have a lot more ways to fight it in today's world. You can't get away with stuff like that with social media and alternative media that's out there. That would never happen again, I believe. But again, the basics are not being taught. Our children are not competent to compete in the world. That
disingenuous that they're to say, oh, we support education. And the problem that we're having with our education, reading, writing, arithmetic, is because we are talking about when your neighbor looks different from you, or if kids have questions about that a teacher can actually respond. And I think it's disingenuous because then we slash funding, we slash programs, we don't pay our teachers, and we go, oh, I wonder, what the problem is here when we don't fund our educational system at the correct level that we should be supporting.
But this is more than talking about being empathetic and teaching kids about being kind and respectful. We're talking about gender theory. We're talking about intersectionality. We're talking about books that talk about boys kissing boys and transgenderism and things like this. This goes well beyond respect and empathy. And this should not be in the classroom. It's Marxism. The whole Democrat Party has been infiltrated by Marxism to the point where in Colorado now we have them trying, I think it actually passed an act which would classify parental misgendering of a child as coercive control. This is where we're going. And this is why the country chose and elected President Trump, because we see that the left, the Democrat Party, has gone way too far. We have to put a stop to this.
You guys saw their looks.
Good job, AJ. Good job.
Thank you, Nicole. You saw her face when I said Marxist, the Democrat Party has been infiltrated by Marxists. She was like, oh. And did you see the host when she said, your president? I was like, wow. So this case, Mahmoud v. Taylor, is about a coalition of parents from Montgomery County, Maryland, right here in Maryland, contend that requiring their children to participate in instruction that includes LGBTQ plus themes violates their religious beliefs and thus their First Amendment right to freely exercise their religion. So the court announced in 2023 it would not allow parents to opt out. They cannot opt out their children from or excused from instruction involving this type of curriculum, this type of material. And guess what? It's not just Christians or Protestants pushing back. It's Muslims, Catholics, and Ukrainian Orthodox parents who are bringing this case to court.
Well, I watched the whole thing, and I will say this. It's one thing to be on the podcast where there are other conservative voices, even if they're not as conservative as you are. It's a whole nother thing to go into the mouth of the lion. It's a whole other thing because they do kind of nip at your heels. Your president. Well, he's her president too. She's an American citizen. And then they're talking about the slashing of the budget. Slashing in Maryland? There's no slashing. In fact, teachers are getting more money now than they've ever gotten. The blueprint has basically ensured that I think second, third year teachers are going to make $90,000 a year. Wow. So there's no slashing of the budget going on here. These are Democrat talking points, and kudos to you for calling it out. But to this case, a couple of quick points. One, we're talking about elementary school kids. Mm-hmm. We're not talking about high schoolers. We're not talking about older middle schoolers. We're talking about K through 5. And them telling your first grader, your second grader, all about transgenderism. If you don't see this as the uber left, the super liberals trying to normalize perversion, I don't know what you're looking for. The parents have a very strong argument saying that this is an infringement upon their religious liberty. So it's not just Christians, it's not just Muslims. Almost everybody has a dog in this fight, with the exception of some of the most liberal people you ever want to meet that live here in Maryland. Mm-hmm. And they're willing to throw their one child, because most of them only have one, their mm-hmm. one child to the wolves, because, it's popular to have a transgender child now. It's the new, puppy in the bag. You guys remember that when everybody got the small teacup puppies carried around in the bag? Now they're dressing their boys up like girls, and their girls are getting their breasts lopped off and wondering what's going to happen later. It is unconscionable, and I cannot wait to hear what the Supreme Court is going to say about this.
Yeah, same here. Shelley, what are your thoughts?
My thoughts are, excuse me, number one, the Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech or respecting the religion or prohibiting the exercise thereof. That's the First Amendment. That's number one. So beyond the religious or the religions that are being represented in this case, this is a First Amendment right, as far as I can see it, in my never to be humble opinion. Mm-hmm. I'm not a Supreme Court justice. I'm not an attorney, no less. But nevertheless, the Bill of Rights, our Constitution is there. Any, 8th, 7th, 8th grader can read it. That's mm-hmm. what it means. So when they are prohibiting parents from removing children, I don't even understand how that works. But nevertheless, that's what they're doing, from even removing children. My biggest point, even above that, or at least equal with that, is I don't get why these parents are allowing it or taking it. Take your children out. They are yours. I don't care what the Supreme Court says. I don't care what the Maryland court says. Take them out of the classroom. Why do you need permission from anybody to do that?
Yeah. Tyrone, what are your thoughts there?
Well, at the risk of sounding like a broken record, come out from among them. You will not go to motor vehicle. I don't care what state it's in. You will not tomorrow go to the Motor Vehicle Administration and tell them how to run the place. Okay. You won't go into the Pentagon and tell them how to run any branch of the military. So, knowing that, all right, why would you place your most precious child in a situation that you've already admitted by your protest is antithetical to what you would have them, learn and adopt as ideologies and philosophies, especially when they're young and impressionable? Okay. Mm-hmm. Now, Nicole made a good point. And people can debate this, and there's ongoing debate about this, but Sigmund Freud said that by the time you're 8 years old, you're pretty much who you're going to be. Okay. Mm-hmm. So that really indicates how formative those early years are. Okay. These educators know that. That's why they want to get them early. Come out from among them. People will say, well, I got to work and I can't afford it. It is 2025. My mother, who never made more than $15,000 a year, homeschooled me. All right. There are resources. She did the legwork. She found the resources. She made it happen. I don't see what the big deal is. I really don't. And I don't have kids. And people will say, well, you don't have kids. No, I don't. And I'm not a helicopter pilot either. But if I see one upside down in a nosedive, I figure something's going on.
It's trouble.
Right. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So people, you got to stop complaining and just opt out. All
so
right?
let me say this, and I want to get your opinion on this, Nicole. So yes, we have said this. All of us have said this. Take your kids out of public schools. But just to push back a little bit to provide some opposition. Isn't that running away? Isn't that because we're still paying for these schools, the government schools, the public schools, out of our tax dollars? Why should we have to pay for government schools to indoctrinate any child? Why shouldn't we be pushing more so for them to remove this out of the curriculum? The lady that I was on the panel with, Ann Stone, she was another conservative, and I love her. I want to get her on the show too. But she brought up a good point. She was like, we should be focused on reading, writing, and arithmetic, and maybe history. Not this. If they want this stuff in school, it should be an elective. It should not be mandatory teaching, especially to kindergartners. So shouldn't we be pushing to get it out of schools? Not saying, which I agree with, taking kids out.
I think we can do both. But
exactly.
I think we have to understand, Tyrone made a good point about the formative years. And there are some theories that say it's the years, by 8 it's formed. You're right, Tyrone. Mm-hmm. But there's different theories that talk about the different milestones and ages of children, how they develop. That's number one. Number two, you can do both. But we also have to realize that during those younger years, particularly younger years, two things are going on at once. You can fight all you want, but you're still putting your child in the dangerous zone where you don't have the control, if you will, to guide and direct their most formative time to get the foundations in place. Someone mentioned in the comments about personality being set at 18. No, that's not true, dear. Personalities are set way before then in human beings, period. They might come out more in their teenage years, but 9 times out of 10, most mothers know the personality of their child when they're born. Again, from the time they're born, certainly about 8 years old. So you can do both. We can fight. We should fight for these theories, or these teachings should be out of the classroom, or at least an elective. But your child is the one who's going to bear the brunt of the consequences and the dangers during those times.
Right. Your child, as you fight, your child is steadily matriculating through a system that you have identified as poisonous. Your child, while you're fighting, is spending more waking hours with an evil system than they are with you. Okay. So it's not running away at all. You're fine. Taxes are compulsory. I got to pay them, fine. Mm-hmm. But I don't have to participate in something that I have identified as wrong. And I certainly don't have to subject my child to that.
Yeah, I believe a lot of the parents involved in the lawsuit have already removed their children. What they're suing for is to compel the school system to stop doing this so they can send their kids back to the public school. The question, though, a very interesting question, is what is the purpose of public schooling? It is to make workers, right? So what is the big push to have these workers so comfortable to normalize transgenderism and homosexuality? When you're in the workplace, does it even matter if the person next to you who's doing whatever their job is gay, transgender? It really doesn't matter. So then it makes me think, what are they really wanting to do with these children? Mm-hmm. What is the end game of this whole thing?
It's what I said. What had the ladies' mouths hanging open. Mm-hmm. It's Marxism.
Absolutely.
We know that Marxism views the family not as a social good, but as a political enemy. So your parental rights stand in the way of their revolution. As you mentioned, Nicole, they're trying to make us all cogs in the system. Mm-hmm. And so what is the best way to do that? Get them while they're young and indoctrinate them, make them these cogs, because the family fights against the outside world. If the family is supposed to be the first unit of structure that our children see, and we are supposed to mold and frame them. Mm-hmm. And so if they can get rid of that and the state becomes the family, then they have almost like little robots. They want us like China, where they
have minions.
Manipulate.
Right. They have millions and millions of minions who only understand their worldview. Right. And I think that in itself is the end game. I mean, it started a long time ago, but one of the things I think is really compelling is when you ask them what the end game is, they call you names. That's when you're Uncle Tom. That's when you're Oreo. I mean, they got some very inventive names, right? So they call you names because they don't want to say the quiet part out loud. I'm not a big advocate of, playing games with school funding and money and that kind of thing. But, sign your kid up for public school, then snatch them out right before they get the payment. That's a little slap in the face for them, so that they're not getting quite as much money as they thought they were. And get yourself a nice co-op. There are lots of ways to educate your children. And here in Southern Maryland, we have some very, very good co-ops. They have charter schools. They have all these other alternative ways of raising your children. And if you can, like Tyrone said, if you can find it in your heart, not necessarily in your pocketbook, homeschool your children.
Yeah.
Homeschool.
I want to recommend, we talk about Marxism on here a lot, and we mentioned this, and I want to recommend another book. And this book is, I'm going to say old. I've read it. It came out in 1990. I still have my copy. It's buried in my attic, but it's called 7 Men Who Rule the World from the Grave. One of them is Marx. They have Kierkegaard. There's a couple of other people in there. I think John Dewey. And I'm mentioning this book because these men, they rule the world. And the book really talks about, in an academic sense, or how these theories have filtered down through society, from particularly academics, but certainly science, politics, things like that. And it's not a big book. It's a really easy read. So I'm going to recommend it to you all. We've mentioned other books. It's called 7 Men Who Rule the World from the Grave. And so when we talk about Marxism, you can, if you have that book, I think you will better see why we say this and how these other theories have infiltrated into academia even today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I'd like to make a
college. Yeah.
Quick suggestion as well, to understand how insidious this transgender push toward children is. Sit down and study the process of converting, okay, or transitioning, I guess you would say. Sit down and really understand the medical and surgical aspect of it, as well as the lifelong requirement for medical attention. Okay, it's barbarism. It is. There used to be a time in this country where we railed against sexual mutilation of young girls. Okay, and now we champion that. Mm-hmm. And we are actually, and you got to sit down and study this, we are saddling children with lifelong, real deal physical and mental trauma. You look into that surgery, and it is absolutely barbaric.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I can attest to that, not personally, thankfully, but I can attest to that. I have seen people literally who have been mutilated with their bodies being changed. In this one case, it was a male going to a female. It's horrific. It is horrific. It's one thing to see people, it's not such a good thing, a good sight, if you will, to see people who have necessary surgeries, right, and their bodies and their parts of their body have to be cut off for, life-saving therapeutic reasons. You don't even, that you have to kind of stomach that. But when you see something as horrific, it's mangled, it's Frankensteinish, if you will. Mm-hmm. It's horrific. It really is. It not only makes you angry, because when you see the people who these surgeries have been done to, many of them, at least the ones that I've seen, many of them are really living in this delusion. Mm-hmm. So outside of their delusion, in my never to be humble opinion, the medical and psychiatric community, they have taken advantage of them.